This is the exact order in which your test would also appear. You cannot shift between, you cannot juggle between the sections. We have seen this in 2024 and I don't want you to skip anything just because it was not asked the previous year. But then reading, not just generic reading, you need to read and understand what they're trying to tell you. Most puzzles, the number-based puzzles that we've seen, are very similar to Sudoku. Although the comfort level may not be the same, but don't plan on skipping anything. Okay, I'm thinking of planning to skip modern math because it is too complicated for me. Don't do that. So if you are preparing for CAT 2026 and if you're just starting up, I know you are wondering that what would be the best way to begin preparing. The first things first is you need to understand what are the areas of CAT that get tested. There are three sections basically. You have your VARC, the DILR and the quant section. And in this video, I'm going to explain the syllabus that gets covered in a test like CAT. This also applies for other tests like XAT, SNAP and NMAT as well. So let's get this thing started. So CAT, like I said, on the total, as long as the pattern remains the same, 2025, if the same pattern remains, CAT 2025 pattern, then there would be 68 questions. There are 3 marks given to each question. That means a total of 204 marks. Now I know what you're wondering, sir, isn't 204 a very weird number? Why can't they just do a round of 200? They can't, because there's 3 marks per question and 200 is clearly not divisible by 3. Yeah, so 204 marks is the entire paper and you'd be given 120 minutes. Now, how are these 120 minutes or these 68 questions or these 204 marks split between the 3 sections? So the 3 sections, like I said, are number 1 VARC, number 2 DILR and number 3 quant. This is the exact order in which your test would also appear. You cannot shift between, you cannot juggle between the sections. You have to complete one section and then only you can move on to it, and this will remain the order of it, right? So the VARC will have 24 questions. That means about 72 marks and the time given to that is 40 minutes. Number 2, the DILR section will have 22 questions, that is 66 marks and the same 40 minutes. And the third, you have quant with 22 questions, 66 marks and 40 minutes. So you see how these 68 questions are split, 24, 22 and 22, right? I know what you're wondering, sir, why aren't the number of questions equal? However, the time is given to them equally, 40, 40, 40, 120 minutes. Let's not get into all of that, right? That's a lot of technicality there, so we're not going to get into that. So let's pick up each of the sections. VARC, 24 questions, 40 minutes. Let's talk about what are the areas that get tested. The VARC stands for verbal ability and RC stands for reading comprehension. So I think that itself clarifies a lot of things, but let's talk in detail what are the concepts that get tested. In verbal ability, there would be about 8 questions and in reading comprehension, about 16 questions. Verbal ability questions are usually solo questions, individual questions. But VARC, the reading comprehension part, will have 4 RCs, 4 reading comprehension passages with each having 4 questions. So 4 into 4, 16 questions from the reading comprehension part, right? Let's talk about verbal ability. What are the areas that get tested? Under verbal ability, you have your para summary. That is, a paragraph would be given to you and you have to select an option that can summarize that entire paragraph. Number 2, paragraph jumbles. The sentences in paragraph would be jumbled. Maybe sentences, maybe phrases, they'd be jumbled and you have to find the right order of that. Number 3 is sentence elimination or odd one out. Again, we have not seen this in the last year, but yeah, we have seen this in 2024 and I don't want you to skip anything just because it was not asked the previous year. Because CAT normally does this. CAT either juggles between these concepts or tries to introduce something new every single time and you don't want to get caught in that crossfire, okay? The next is sentence placement. You'd be given a paragraph with empty slots after every line and one sentence would be given to you. You need to identify where you can place that sentence in that paragraph so that it makes sense grammatically as well, logically as well, because it has to follow the right flow of the paragraph, okay? Now the skills that are required to be able to, so what you think is, this is not like quant, this is not like math, that let's say you have addition, you only learn addition and you get over with. You have percentages, you only learn percentages and you can answer the question. Not like that. Since reading comprehension and verbal ability, these are skill based sections, right? VARC, DILR, both are skill based sections. So you have to grow some skills there, right? So the skills required for verbal ability is number one, grammar. You have to be very, very comfortable with all rules of grammar. Number two, you also have to be comfortable with vocabulary. You also need to understand what each word means so that you can clearly place a sentence there, or you can identify the odd one out depending upon the meaning of the entire paragraph as well. Moving on to reading comprehension. Reading comprehension will have a passage. The passage could either be an unseen passage that is not seen anywhere, or it could be taken from any articles of most newspapers or e-magazines, right? So the areas that get tested there is number one, philosophy based passages. You can be given passage that is taken from an article or can be taken from say a paper that is published that's based on philosophy. Could be existentialism, could be ethics based, anything. Moving on, psychology and cognition, second thing. Number three, sociology or anthropology, that is based on humans or how humans evolved in society, so on so forth. Yes. Then you have economics, could be both behavioral or development based as well. And then you have science and tech essays. Mind you, these are not current affairs, this is not news, this is articles, right? So science and tech essays could also be given to you. Now, understanding what skills you need for reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is something that you've been doing for a very long time now. Any English exam that you've taken right from class 1 till now will have a passage given to you. The basic skills there would be what? One, reading. But then reading, not just generic reading, you need to read and understand what they're trying to tell you. Second, critical reasoning. There could be some sentences given there that might be contradicting the whole idea of the passage, but you still need to understand what the entire passage is trying to tell you about, right? That is your VARC section. I hope everything gets cleared now. There will be detailed video given for each of these sections, don't worry about that. But this is me trying to cover up the entire CAT exam as a whole, okay? Moving on to the second section now, which is your DILR section. 22 questions, 40 minutes. How are these 22 questions split? Are they all individual? No. CAT does not give you individual questions. CAT gives set-based questions. So what they do is, they give you 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets. 3 has never happened in history, right? 4 sets we have seen, 5 sets we have seen. This is what they do. There would be either 5 questions or 6 questions, or back in the day when there used to be 20 questions, they used to ask 4 questions per set. So a set is basically just like reading comprehension. Instead of a passage, you will be given some instructions on how to answer that particular puzzle or that set, or a chart given to you, and based on that you have to answer the questions, right? So it could be a split between 5 questions and 6 questions, or 4 questions and 6 questions, or 4 and 5, anything, okay? Let's talk about what DI stands for. DI stands for data interpretation, and LR stands for logical reasoning. So it takes up a very good combination of both DI and LR. Now, sometimes the kind of sets that we've seen over the years, you can't even differentiate whether this is a DI set or LR set. So if you are asking, sir, which has a greater weightage, should I be focusing more on DI or focusing more on LR? Honestly, I can't tell you that. Nobody can tell you that. Only you can tell yourself that, especially when you are sitting in the exam hall in front of the set. Only then you can figure out whether it's a DI or an LR, and in most cases you can't even figure that out, okay? So let's talk about DI. Like I said, number of questions you cannot understand, you cannot make a guess also, because we've seen a huge variance, defiance in the kind of questions. You can't say that, okay, 11 questions, or maybe 10 questions, 12 questions. Nobody knows that. Yes, we have seen slots where in the entire DILR there have been no DI questions at all, and we have seen slots where there have been majority DI questions as well. So this question you need to stop asking, what should I focus on more? No, you have to focus on both equally, okay? Let's get into data interpretation. What are the things that you have to be good at for being able to answer data interpretation? But before that, let's talk about the syllabus. You need to be good with reading tables, understanding the data from the tables. Number 2, pie charts. Pie charts haven't been asked for a very long time, but then indirectly they do get asked. Pie charts, another variant of the pie chart would be a sunburst chart, which is very similar to a pie chart, which have been asked for a very long time now. Okay, then you have your bar graphs, your line graphs, and there are something called miscellaneous charts. Miscellaneous charts are the charts that are generally not classified as a bar, but they are graphs. They are technically graphs. It could be a bubble chart, it could be a candlestick chart, it could be a sunburst chart, right, or a radar chart or a triangular plot, anything. And we have seen those getting asked year and year again. Sometimes there has been a gap, but then this is a part of the syllabus and you have to make sure that you're good at them. Okay, and then you have word problems. Word problems are basically data interpretation problems without any charts. All the data is given to you in the form of text only. Okay, so what are the skills that you should learn or you should get good at to be able to answer these? Please understand, data interpretation is not a separate subject or something like that altogether, right? Entire DILR section, in fact, is a very good mix of English and math. You have to be good with English because the kind of puzzles given to you, the sets given to you, need to understand what they tell you, and math because especially data interpretation takes up a lot of the math concepts, right? It could be obviously starting with reading of charts, then calculation. You have to be very comfortable with basic calculation like your addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and you also have to be comfortable with finding out squares, square roots, and so on and so forth. Okay, then you have percentages, understanding how to calculate percentage, what x percentage of y means, what does x percentage growth means, x percentage increase or decrease means, so on and so forth. Okay, then you have ratios, what a is to b means, how is that important here, what happens when a particular entity is divided into a ratio of a is to b, what is the share given to each of them, right? And then you have averages. Averages, you have to be comfortable with the standard average. There's something called weighted average. You have to be comfortable with median, mode. That's a very basic of the statistics as well that get tested here. Okay, so this is data interpretation. Now let's move on to logical reasoning. Now logical reasoning is a very vast, very vast area. But what I have done is over 20 years, right? Over 20 years of CAT, the sections, the kind of concepts that are tested, we've collated them as a syllabus, and that's what we are presenting in front of you. Okay, so with logical reasoning, you have arrangements. This would include linear arrangements, circular arrangements, or multiple layered arrangements as well. Then you have distribution, which has your standard grid based distribution. Apart from that, placement and scheduling kind of questions are also fallen under the distribution area. Then you have games and tournaments, where you have a puzzle or a set where there is a scenario given to you. There's a tournament that is being conducted between some X number of teams, and then these are the outcomes of it. You might have to identify the fixtures, who plays against whom when, or you might have to identify their points, who gets how many points, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's games and tournaments. Then you have maps and networks, where a map can be either given to you directly or data can be given to you about that map, and you have to draw the map there and answer the questions. This could deal with the efficient ways of covering up one point to the second point, or how much fuel is going to get cost, or how much time is going to get spent for covering that area, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's maps and networks. And the end is puzzles. Now puzzles, again, a very vast area, but majorly what we see in puzzles is, one, either you get number based puzzles very similar to your Sudoku. Not exactly Sudoku, they don't give you a Sudoku puzzle and ask you to solve, but most puzzles, the number based puzzles that we've seen, are very similar to Sudoku, just that there will be some backstory given to that. But if you look at the big picture of it, it is still going to remain like a Sudoku puzzle, right? Then you have math based puzzles, where there's actual math involved there. Could be averages, could be ratios, could be percentages, could be solving of some basic equations, so on and so forth. Okay, and then you have logic based puzzles as well, where there is binary logic kind of a thing. If this happens, then this happens. If that happens, then that happens, so on and so forth. Okay, then you have Venn diagrams. Venn diagrams are basically, I hope you remember Venn diagrams, right? You would have learned this back in school. There's a set A, there's a set B, there's an intersection between them, there's a union between them. Yes, so here Venn diagrams is a little bit different from number theory or set theory, but the base there still remains the same, right? You need to identify the intersection, but most of these would be logic based and not syllogism based, right? All A's are B's, some B's are A's. That's syllogism, that comes under verbal reasoning, all right? And then you have missing data. Now, missing data is one of the most favorites of CAD logical reasoning that we've seen. What they do is they'll either give you a graph or a table or a chart, anything, and there will be some parts of it that are missing. Some cells of the table would be missing, or one of the bars would be missing, and you need to identify what those are based on either the logic of the chart itself or the conditions that are given to you. All right. So this is the syllabus of logical reasoning. Now I know this is an understatement, so there's so many things that we have not counted, not like that, right? So this is a big umbrella under which these are basically the sub umbrellas, okay? Now what are the skills that you have to grow or you have to get good at to be able to solve questions from logical reasoning? Number one, language. Like I said, DILR is a very good of both English and math, so you have to be good at both to be able to get comfortable with DILR. Number two, cognitive thinking. You need to be able to understand what the constraints are, what the conditions are, and act accordingly. You need to understand what can come where and what would be the consequence of that, so on and so forth, okay? Then constraint based solving, like I said, if there's some constraints given to you, you need to identify the right kind of data set that would satisfy all the conditions given to you. But one thing that I have not mentioned here, and it's an understatement, is patience. With DILR, you have to be extremely patient, not only while learning, not only while practicing, not only while giving mock tests, but also during the test. What happens normally is people lose their cool and they end up either rushing through the set, through which what happens is they either miss out on a couple of conditions or they misread it and then they end up spoiling the entire thing, right? DILR is one of the most scared sections of CAT, and to make it less scary, you have to be extremely patient, right? Please understand that you don't have to answer all the questions to get a very good score. We will put an individual video on how many questions to answer for what percentile that you're looking for in the upcoming days, okay? Now let's move on to the elephant in the room, the quantitative ability, QA or quants like we call it. 22 questions, 40 minutes is the entire section. Now with quant, like I said, it's a huge area. It is basically your entire math that you've learned so far. Maybe leave out your 11th and 12th math because they don't ask questions, complicated questions like say integration or differentiation or asking about Fourier series and so on and so forth, or they do not ask very complicated questions that you end up taking say 10-12 minutes to solve, right? There will be some question that might look like that, but the idea is to find out alternate ways of dealing with them, okay? So with quant, the umbrella is extremely large, right? It's an ocean, and this is the most time-taking section while preparing. Yes, because the syllabus is so vast, there's so many areas, so many concepts, so many sub-concepts that you have to be comfortable with. So I don't mean to scare you, but just give you a reality check. Here are the areas that get tested under quant. So you have something called arithmetic, algebra, geometry, modern math, and number system. So these are the 5 sub umbrellas or subsections of the quantitative ability where you have to be comfortable with a few and not comfortable with the others can be very risky. So because right now you have a lot of time, what I would suggest is get comfortable with all of them. Although the comfort level may not be the same, but don't plan on skipping anything. Okay, I'm thinking of planning to skip modern math because it is too complicated for me. Don't do that, because you never know in which year which section could get a little heavier. Yes, so you don't want to risk that, okay? Now let's talk about what we have seen over the years. On an average, how many questions can you expect from each of these areas? In arithmetic, out of the 22 questions, you can expect about 7 to 9 questions that are directly arithmetic or indirectly arithmetic based. Algebra about 6 to 8 questions, geometry about 4 to 6 questions, modern math about 1 to 3 questions, and number systems about 1 to 3 questions, okay? Now this, you might look at this and say, sir, why would I prepare for modern math or number system? Why not just jump at arithmetic and maybe algebra and get it over with? You can always do that, but then that's a risk that you're planning on taking, right? The major three things that you have to be comfortable are these three. Yes, you have to be comfortable with arithmetic, algebra and geometry to cover majority of the questions. That way you will be able to tackle most of the questions, right? That's the idea. That does not mean that you skip off modern math and number system, okay? Chalo, let's talk about each of these in detail. Let's talk about the arithmetic section. What are the areas that get tested under arithmetic? Number one, percentages. You have to be comfortable with percentage calculation, representation of percentage, how something called a multiplicative factor can pitch in, what is percentage change, increase and decrease, what is successive percentage, so on and so forth. So I'm not writing all of these down because I'm not going to give you everything in detail now, because I would rather want a quant teacher to tell you that in detail. Same way for VARC, and in DILR, I or Gaurav sir will end up making a video for you on that specifically. Okay, so you have percentages. Based on percentages is profit and loss. Then you have simple interest, compound interest and installments, which is again a subsection of percentages. So if you're good with percentages, you will be able to answer questions from profit, loss, SICI and installments as well. Then you have ratios and proportions. Based on ratios and proportions and percentages mix, you have mixtures and allegations. Then you have time, speed and distance. This might give you some nostalgia, things that you've learned in your say 8th or 9th grade math, I think. Yes, understanding what speed is. This might also give you some trauma. You would have learned this in physics as well. So if you're someone who's gone through that trauma, don't worry, it's not going to get that complicated. But yeah, the questions that get asked here are not direct questions, right? They are application based questions. So you have to be comfortable with that. Then you have time, work and efficiency, wherein again there are subsections. There are smaller concepts like pipes and cisterns is a part of time and work. In time, speed, distance, you have boats and streams, and you have relative speed and effective speed. So like I said, I'm not going to get into those details, because I'll let the quant educators do that for you. Okay, moving on to algebra now. Yes, algebra, the second majority of quant that is occupied is by algebra. Under algebra, again, the algebra is not as complicated as your 11th, 12th algebra, but then it's a little bit basic, right? So if you are comfortable with your 8th grade till 9th grade, 10th grade algebra, you should be able to pass through this very easily. It starts off with basic equations like linear equations. Then it goes off to quadratic equations. Then you have functions, you have polynomials, you have inequalities, you have series and sequence, where you have arithmetic progression, geometric progression, harmonic progression, other sequence, other series as well, right? And then you have logarithms. Yes. Now you'd be wondering, sir, do we not have trigonometry? Trigonometry doesn't get tested directly, right? You don't have to remember the huge list of identities. You don't have to mug them up, but just a basic understanding of it in the terms of application would be sufficient, right? We have not seen direct trigonometric questions getting asked in CAT, but yeah, it does get asked as an application of it, right? They might give you the height of a wall. They might give you how far the ladder is from the wall, and then they might ask you the height of the ladder, something like that, right? Like height and distance. So application of that could be asked. So that's why I said functions. Under functions, you will also have trigonometric functions. Okay. Moving on to geometry. Again, there's no three-dimensional geometry here, so you don't have to get worried about 3D geometry. But yes, there will be 2D geometry, and under a section called mensuration, that's a part of geometry, there three-dimensional objects mensuration can be asked. They might ask you the surface area of it, the volume of it, so on and so forth. Okay. So under geometry, what do you have? You have lines and angles, the basics of it. From there, you move on to triangles, understand major theorems that get asked in triangles and how you can use the area of the triangle to answer most of the questions, so on and so forth. Then you have quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals are four-sided closed figures. Then you have circles, you have mensuration, you have coordinate geometry. Under here, you also have other polygons as well, right? You also have, say, a pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, octagon, so on and so forth. Okay. So yeah, under coordinate geometry, please understand, again, not too detailed, not too complicated, where you might have to use a graph sheet No graph sheets will be given to you. If at all there is some question that you can answer through graph, which is going to be an alternate version of your standard solving, you can definitely go ahead and use that, right? Then you have trigonometry. Like I said, trigonometry, not too much algebraic trigonometry. It's going to be the basics of height and distance only, okay? The ones that you've learned in your 9th and 10th grade, right? So this is geometry. This in itself is a huge pool, right? This itself is a huge body of water where you need to understand every drop of it to be able to answer most of the questions. But yeah, this is not going to be one of those tests where you sit and prove something, prove that ABC is a triangle. God damn it, you tell me if ABC is a triangle or not, okay? They're not going to ask you to prove. You're not going to end up with, therefore, LHS is equal to RHS. That's not going to happen there. All of these questions are going to be objective type questions where they ask you for some value and there will be options, or they will give you a text box where you enter the numerical value, okay? So objective type only, no descriptive type. You don't have to remember the proof of Pythagoras theorem and then come and prove it there. No, you don't have to, okay? So that's geometry for you. Moving on to modern math. Now modern math number system, weightage seems very low, but you need to understand that modern math and number system are one of those areas that are not only applicable for quant, but then they get indirectly asked in logical reasoning and DI as well. Same applies for number system and for the rest of it as well. So like I said, you have to be very good with English, you have to be very good with math to be able to answer questions from DILR, okay? Let's dig deeper into modern math. In modern math, you have permutations and combinations. I know for some of you, this is already giving you some trauma. You are getting some PTSD here, okay? That's our NPR, NCR formula, I don't remember. You will get there when you get there, okay? Don't worry about it. Based on that, there will be probability based questions, set theory based questions. Like I said, set theory, not too deep into set theory, but then the core basics of it, right? Understanding what a set is, what a subset is, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's modern math. Now moving on to number system. Number system actually is the basics of math, right? When I say basics of math, I'm talking about the characteristic of a number. Whether it's an odd number or an even number, whether it's a prime number or a composite number, whether this number is a perfect square or not, whether this number is divisible by a number or not. These are the core basics of it, right? What is an integer? What is a whole number? What's a natural number? What are the properties of the number 0 or the number 1, right? But then normally a lot of people skip this because they think this is a low weightage one. But understand, a concept from number system can be asked in under arithmetic, can be asked under algebra, geometry, or these can also be a part of your DILR section. So quant, you have to be comfortable around it, right? Even though you are not able to answer quant questions, yes, a lot, but still you have to be comfortable with the concepts of it. So under number system, you have factors and multiples, under which you have HCF and LCM. Then you have factorials, you have remainders. This is basically your CAT syllabus, okay? So I know this video might sound a little rushed to you. Sir, why are you rushing? Because I am here only to cover the overview of the syllabus. In detail, syllabus will be given by individual teachers, so you don't have to worry about that. There will be proper planners given to you which you can follow to crack each of these sections. Understand, you cannot be extremely good at one section and be extremely bad at another section, because almost all B schools look at sectional cutoffs as well. So you have to score well in all the three sections. Maybe a small difference between them, that's still adjustable, but you can't be extremely good at one and be very bad at one, right? You can't let that happen. Now, to help you answer any questions that you have with regards to the syllabus, if you have any queries, any questions, you can reach out to me on my Telegram group. This is my Telegram group's QR code, or you can directly search for this there and you can join it. You can post any questions, any queries that you have with regards to your CAT preparation. Yeah, so that's about it. If you have any other questions, any other queries, we've also started doing a lot of live sessions, live academic sessions on the channel. You can just jump to the live section of it and have a look at what are the sessions that have been planned. I hope that helps you out. All the very best, folks. Cheers. Thank you for listening.